The golden rays of the morning sun used to dance across the kitchen table, illuminating the steam from their coffee mugs. For Akari, this was the heartbeat of her world. She and Haru had spent 7 years weaving their lives together. They spoke of a future with a house by the coast and the names of children they hadn't yet met. Haru was her anchor, the man who knew her favorite song before she even realized she was humming it. Their routine was a symphony of quiet comfort, a soft kiss before work, a shared look across a crowded room, but the portrait shattered on a Tuesday. Akari was in a distant part of the city, searching for a book. Through the glass of a cafe, she saw him. He wasn't alone. Haru was leaned in close to a woman, his face bright with a laugh that Akari thought belonged exclusively to her. It wasn't the polite laugh he gave to colleagues. It was intimate, punctuated by a gentle touch on the woman's arm that sent a cold shiver down Akari's spine. She stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird, watching the man she loved offer his affection to another. Instead of demanding an explanation, Akari stepped back. A terrifying realization gripped her. If she spoke the truth out loud, it would become permanent. As long as the words remained unsaid, she could still pretend. That night, when Haru returned home and kissed her cheek, she didn't flinch. She became an actress in her own home, a silent observer of her own heartbreak, watching for the cracks she had previously ignored. The apartment began to fill with small, devastating clues. There was the faint floral scent of unfamiliar perfume on Haru's jacket. There was the way he kept his phone face down, his thumb hovering to hide messages. Even his voice changed. The "I love you" he whispered before bed felt hollow, like an empty shell. Akari noticed every shift in his tone, every forced smile, and every moment his eyes glazed over as he thought of someone else. She felt like a ghost haunting her own life, invisible to the man who once saw everything in her. On her birthday, Haru took her to their favorite restaurant. The candlelight flickered, but the warmth was gone. Haru spent the evening checking his watch. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. He told her she looked beautiful, but his eyes didn't truly see her. He spoke of stressful deadlines, spinning a web of deceit while Akari sat across from him, swallowing the lump in her throat. She watched him lie to her face with practiced ease, her heart breaking a little more with every bite of a meal she could not taste. Alone in her mind, Akari wrestled with a crushing sense of inadequacy. She looked in the mirror and wondered what had changed. Was she no longer enough for him? Had the years of comfort turned into a cage? The psychological weight of her silence was a physical burden, making her chest ache. She was mourning a man who was still sitting right in front of her, yet he felt now thousands of miles away. Every shared memory felt tainted, as if the past was being rewritten by his current betrayal. She felt like a fool for ever believing in their forever. The evening ended with a final sharp twist of the knife. While Haru was in the shower, Akari reached into his bag to find her keys. Her fingers brushed against a small black velvet box hidden in a side pocket. Her heart leaped with a desperate hope. Perhaps this was a gift for her, a sign he wanted to fix everything between them. She opened it to find a delicate silver necklace she had admired months ago. But when Haru returned, he quickly snatched the leather bag and tucked the box deeper into his pocket. The apartment they once called home had transformed into a sterile gallery of forgotten promises. Every corner held a memory that now felt like a jagged piece of glass. Akari moved through the rooms with a ghostly grace, her footsteps making no sound on the polished wood floors. She had become an expert at the art of invisibility, a silent spectator watching Haru navigate the wreckage of their intimacy. He still sat in his favorite chair and drank from the mug she had bought him on their 3rd anniversary, but he was no longer truly there. His presence was a hollow shell, a choreographed performance of a man who still cared. Akari felt the chill of the air more deeply now, as if the very walls were absorbing the warmth she once provided. The cruelty of his deception took a more visceral form during a chance encounter in a local park. Akari had gone there seeking the solace of nature, only to find the source of her torment. She saw the woman from the cafe sitting on a bench, sketching in a leather-bound notebook. Up close, the realization hit Akari like a physical blow to the stomach. This was the illustrator Haru used to talk about with such fervent admiration years ago. Seeing the way the sunlight caught the other woman's hair, she realized the betrayal was far more profound than a simple physical attraction. It was a theft of the intellectual and emotional bond Akari thought they exclusively shared. She stood behind a wide oak tree, her breath hitching, watching as the woman smiled down at a glowing text message. This internal psychological decay began to take a visible toll on Akari's health. Her reflection in the hallway mirror revealed a woman she barely recognized. Her collarbones became prominent, and the dark circles under her eyes told the story of 1,000 sleepless nights. She had lost her appetite entirely, the very thought of food turning to sand in her mouth. Haru, however, remained blissfully oblivious. He was so thoroughly consumed by the thrill of his secret affair and the maintenance of his lies that he failed to notice her shrinking frame. He would ask how her day was without waiting for an answer, his eyes already darting toward his vibrating phone. To him, her silence was mistaken for contentment, a convenient cover that allowed him to continue his path of destruction. In the quiet moments of the afternoon, Akari found herself haunted by a memory from a rainy night many years ago. They had been huddled together under a small leaking umbrella, laughing at their misfortune. Haru had stopped, pulled her close, and looked at her with such intensity that she felt she might melt. He promised her that he would never let a single tear fall from her eyes because of him. He vowed to be her sanctuary. That promise now echoed in her mind like a funeral dirge. The irony of his words was a bitter pill she swallowed every day. The man who had vowed to be her protector had become the very person from whom she needed protection. The rain outside now felt like a cold reminder of the lies that formed the foundation of her current misery. One evening, the pressure behind her ribs became unbearable. As Haru sat across from her, his face illuminated by the cold blue light of his smartphone, Akari opened her mouth to speak. She wanted to scream, to demand why she wasn't enough, to force him to look at the wreckage he was causing. But before she could utter a syllable, Haru let out a long, weary sigh. He launched into a masterful monologue about a stressful new project at work, weaving a complex narrative of demanding clients and sleepless nights. He looked at her with puppy-dog eyes, silently begging for the sympathy he didn't deserve. She felt the weight of her own cowardice, yet the pain of speaking seemed even more insurmountable than the pain of remaining silent. She simply nodded, offering a small, tragic smile that he mistook for genuine support. The distance between them was no longer a crack, it was a canyon. Haru began staying out later and later, his excuses becoming increasingly transparent and repetitive. The meetings ran over, or the team needed to decompress, he would say with a voice lacking conviction. Akari accepted every lie with a quiet nod, her heart breaking into a million jagged shards with every hollow apology. She watched him wash the scent of the other woman off his skin in the shower, the steam rising like the fog of deceit that filled their home. Every apology was a fresh wound, a reminder that he valued his secret life more than the 7 years they had built together. She was living in a house of cards, waiting for the final gust of wind to knock it all down. The silence of the bedroom was suddenly shattered by the sharp vibration of Haru's phone on the nightstand while he was in the shower. Akari, sitting on the edge of the bed, felt a cold resolve wash over her. She picked up the device, her fingers steady despite the fire in her chest. The screen lit up with a notification that changed everything. "I can't wait to see you tonight," the message read. The name of the illustrator displayed clearly at the top. "I'm so glad she doesn't suspect anything," the text continued. Akari stared at the words until they blurred into a haze of light. She didn't cry. She didn't throw the phone. Instead, she placed it back on the nightstand, aligning it perfectly with the edge, her face a mask of terrifying hollow calm. The day their anniversary arrived, it felt like a heavy shroud draped over the apartment. Haru's text was predictable. "Stuck at the office, don't wait up." Akari didn't respond. She stood in the center of the living room, the air thick with memories of their first year when he had covered the floor in rose petals. Now, the only things covering the floor were shadows. She pulled a suitcase from the back of the closet, the sound of the zipper cutting through silence like a scream. One by one, she gathered her life. She took sweaters she wore on winter walks, books she had read while he lay his head in her lap, and trinkets that once meant the world. Each item felt lighter than it should, as if the love that once gave them weight had evaporated. She moved with methodical grace, ensuring no trace remained to haunt him. The clock ticked toward 3 in the morning when the lock finally clicked. Haru stumbled in, his coat disheveled and a faint scent of wine clinging to his skin. He didn't expect lights to be on, nor did he expect to see Akari on the sofa, eyes fixed on the door. 2 suitcases stood like sentinels by her side. He tried to summon a smile, the same practiced manipulative curve he had used for months. "Akari, why are you up?" He reached for her, but she recoiled as if his skin were made of ice. She didn't scream. Instead, she spoke with a voice so hollow it drained the room's warmth. She revealed she knew everything. She had seen him with the illustrator, found the necklace, and read his secret messages. The blood drained from Haru's face. The clever excuses he had practiced died in his throat. He realized with a sickening jolt that his game was over. He hadn't been clever, he had been transparent. While he thought he was winning, she was dying in the silence. For months, he treated her like a ghost, never imagining her quietness was a heart hardening into stone. He fell to his knees, begging for a second chance, speaking of mistakes and stress. But Akari saw only a stranger. The man who promised to never let her cry was gone, and the Haru she loved never existed outside her own hope. She didn't wait for his desperate plea to finish. She stood up, her movements certain for the first time in months. The weight that crushed her since that first betrayal finally began to lift. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the brass key, and placed it on the table. It made a sharp, final sound. Without a word, she gripped her suitcases and walked toward the door. Haru's voice followed her, a chorus of apologies that were merely hollow shells. She stepped out, the door clicking shut with a definitive thud. Outside, the morning air was damp with rain, much like the night of his broken promise, but this time she didn't need an umbrella. Akari walked toward the station as the city began to wake. The neon lights reflected in puddles, creating fractured colors. She took a deep breath, the cold stinging her lungs, making her feel vibrantly alive. She wasn't healed, but the suffocating fog had cleared. Passing through the crowded streets, she felt a strange sense of liberation. The secret was no longer her burden. It belonged to the empty apartment and the man she left. Looking up at the gray sky, she felt raindrops on her cheeks. They weren't tears of sorrow, but a baptism for a new beginning. Akari was no longer a ghost in her own home. She was finally free, breathing in the possibility of a life where truth mattered. Every step away from the past was a step toward the woman she was meant to be. The sun began to break through the clouds, casting long shadows that pointed forward toward a horizon she could finally call her own.